My name is Adrian Jensen, and today I am going to be taking this regular MAGCARGO figure and reimagining it as a poison and steel type. The first step is to give him a little bubble bath. These figures sometimes have mold release on them, but also, any kind of oil or dust that's been built up over time could potentially affect paint's ability to stick, so we do want to get rid of that. I'm sorry, little guy. I know you don't like water. Don't worry, you won't be a fire type much longer. Hey guys, so this is my friend MAGCARGO. Isn't he cute? MAGCARGO. It was immediately obvious to me right away that I wanted to make him a poison type. That just makes a lot of sense to me. But thinking about what I want to do with the shell, I really did do some soul searching on that, and I decided why not make him a poison / steel type and give him kind of a metal shell, kind of like cobbled together out of scrap metal, all corroded because he's poisonous. I think that sounds awesome. This flame doesn't make sense anymore because he's not a fire type, so let's just get rid of that. I used a Dremel to cut off all the rocky humps from his shell. Now I'm kind of new at this, so I actually was pretty surprised at how hot the plastic flying off the toy was getting. So I've got a bunch of these index cards here, and I figure I'll pop this open and I'll use it to cut out tiny scrap metal panels that I can cover his shell in. And I have a tiny hole punch that I can use to punch out some tiny little holes to sort of imply some riveting detail. I hope these are flexible enough to actually do what I want them to do. If they're not, I'll just switch them out for paper and they'll be fine too. Yeah, so the cutting and the riveting all went very smoothly, but surprisingly the gluing is what didn't. Now I like to use a lot of super glue and accelerant for speed, but in this case it was way too runny and not grabbing onto those details like I needed it to, so I decided to use some hot glue instead.
That's some hot glue.
Now I did go ahead and put some super glue over top of all that because I knew the shell was probably going to be taking quite a bit of abuse during the painting process, and I wanted it to be super duper hard so that it would hold up. I wanted the shell to look more like it was cobbled together with trash, so I looked inside my bits drawer to see what I could find. Some wheels from a model plane kit? Sure, I guess. A missile? Yeah, that makes as much sense as anything. I also drilled a hole where the flame used to be, and I used a bendy straw to make an exhaust pipe. I was actually planning on getting some cotton and making some smoke coming out of this, but I ended up not doing that. The ring that I put on the top is from a tube of super glue. It's the part that keeps the lid separate before you open it that you would normally throw away. I don't throw them away, I save all of them. I decided to just pour hot, sexy glue all over the guy because I feel like the slime or whatever it is that he's made of is going to have less structural integrity than magma, so I want him to be spilling out a little bit more. And also this way, instead of just the metal overlapping his body can overlap the metal a little bit as well. I took some of these half pearls and I glued them into his eye socket just because when I think it comes time to paint, I'm going to prefer having some 3D eyes there. Oh, you know what? I forgot about this, but I have some little rivets that I want to put on his back as well as an extra detail, so let's do that. As a final detail for the shell, I drew out a cute little skull on a piece of card and I cut it out. My base coat of paint is a really messy patchwork of oranges and browns just thrown on extremely haphazardly. I even tore up some sponges using my immense, strength, and I dabbed some paint on using those. It looks bad, but bad is what I'm going for. After that was dry, I sprayed on some water and I sprinkled on some salt. Okay, here's the plan, right? The water holds the salt on very loosely, yeah? So I'll paint over the salt using a metallic color, and then the salt can just be brushed away, leaving a rust texture behind. Now the logic makes sense, but it's not as easy as it sounds. Maybe the aggressive side of a sponge will work. Maybe jabbing it with a brush or getting in there with my strong masculine fingers. Maybe I'll use the brush on my fucking Dremel. It shouldn't be this hard. Okay, I have a stupid idea. I know it's dumb, but hear me out. Salt is water soluble. Paper, I know, is also water soluble, but my paper is covered in super glue, which is plastic which I don't think is water soluble. So this should work. It should work. Let's see. This didn't exactly come out exactly like I had hoped, but it's actually not too bad. And I think once I get MAGCARGO himself, I'll paint it up so he's not this metal color. The contrast will be pretty nice. So not totally digging it right now, but I think we can save it. All right, let's get out some brown shoe polish and do a wash. You know how I do. Oh yeah, I also forgot that I needed to paint the skull. What? Oops. All right, if you get too much paint on your Mini, you can usually just flood it with water and then soak up the water and you should be okay. All right, so like I was saying, let's get that skull painted white. Now, I'm not going for perfection here. I do want it to look a bit messy. It's a shell of garbage. And I'll just do a little spot wash over just that part and a silver dry brush over the whole thing to bring those edges out. All right, let's pick out a color palette for the main goo. My plan was to paint on some super nice and distinct shadows and highlights, but I started feeling like I was in over my head and this was a bit above my skill level, and I ended up just kind of freestyling it. What am I doing here? Am I trying to wet blend? I don't even know what wet blending is. I'm mostly just making up a mess of the colors and it looks pretty bad. So I mixed up a dark wash of my darkest blue-green paint and some black and some water, and that actually helped a bit because it just settled in the crevices, bringing back a little bit of shape to this. So then I also dry brushed on some of the neon green, and that helped too, doing sort of the same thing, the opposite thing. Anyway, I actually do think it's starting to look okay. I painted on some gloss varnish just on the gooey parts, and that's pretty much what saved it. Now it's all shiny like slime would be, and the glossiness actually makes the colors more vibrant, which makes the slime stand out more against the dull metal.
MAGCARGO, the corrosive Pokemon. MAGCARGO's shell is actually made of scrap metal that it has collected throughout its travels. Its extremely acidic skin has caused the metal to become brittle, and it crumbles apart at the slightest touch.
So what do you guys think? Is he pretty cute? Would you consider this to be a success? Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you like me and you want to see me again, the best way to do that, I think, is to subscribe, and then when I put out another video, you'll come back and I'll see you again, all right? So remember to stay positive, stay creative, and just keep in mind that depression holds on to you the tightest when you're not doing anything. So what I want you to do is to pick a goal. It could be a small goal and just do it. My goal was to finish this little guy and finish this video. Not really a fancy guy, not really a fancy video, but it is finished and I'm happy with it, and I want the same for you. So let me know in the comments what you're gonna do, and I'll see you next week.